Welcome and thanks for stopping by. I wanted to do a quick video about how to make a live USB stick for the purposes of installing Linux or just using it in a live environment. For those of you that have never seen a live environment, this will be pretty interesting. It blew my mind the first time I ever got to see it. A guy showed it to me many years ago. It was actually a CD. I had this professional machine that I used for work, and he's telling me all about Linux and how great it was, and he wanted me to check it out. And I says, well, I don't really have any spare hardware that I could put it on and play with it. He said, no, you can just run it live. And I said, what does that mean? He says, well, here's a CD. Let's put this in your drive. I said, whoa. Don't make any modifications to my machine. It took me a long time to get this Windows XP machine running perfectly, bug-free, and does everything I need. And he says, no, it's not going to make any changes to your machine. It'll let you preview Linux without modifying your machine at all. And I was intrigued. So when we had some time, he went ahead and put the thing in, and in about, 3 minutes, there was a completely foreign, fresh, fully capable operating system running on my laptop, and it didn't change a thing. We played around with internet, Office applications, multimedia, and it was really cool. The whole time I'm sitting there fretting that this is going to screw up my machine. When he got done, took the CD out, I rebooted back into my good old familiar Windows XP, and nothing was changed. I couldn't find anything on the machine that had been modified. Blew my mind, and I got the bug. I had to find out more about Linux. How could something come in and work fully functional in like 3 to 5 minutes that was on par with everything I had been doing in Windows? And if you remember the days of XP, putting Windows in a machine at that time was, it was a 2-3 hour affair at minimum. By the time you got it in, got all the security updates in and all the other random updates, it was miserable. And this thing did it in 3 minutes. And, granted, there was no persistence. It was just running off of a CD, but I had never seen anything like it. If you have not seen a live environment run, it's really fascinating and something you should check out. If you have any interest at all in considering alternatives to the operating system that you're currently using, check out a Linux live environment, in which we're going to kind of prime for here. I'm waiting on a screen recorder that I can use to capture video out of a machine that doesn't have screen recorder software, that will just intercept the HDMI stream and create a recording so that I can kind of show from scratch what it's like to boot up a live environment. Once I have that, I plan on making that video just to kind of further this little demonstration. But for now, let's go and build a live CD, or this will be a USB stick, a live environment. Now I'm using this machine here is Linux Mint. It's been themed a little bit, but you can do this on any operating system, be it Windows or Mac or Linux. The procedure to do this is you're going to do a couple of things. You're going to go and you're going to get what's called an ISO. It's an ISO image of the Linux distro that you'd like to sample, and I'm just going to use Mint as an example. For those coming over from Windows environment, Linux Mint is a great distro because it's very familiar. Linux Mint Cinnamon flavor, by the way. There are different window managers, and we'll get more into this as I make additional videos. But the one that I'm going to use here is and that is on this machine, the host machine that we're using, is Linux Mint. It's a 64-bit edition, and it's the Cinnamon window manager. You'll find it pretty familiar. It operates like Windows. The overall look and feel of the environment is very similar to Windows. So let's jump right in. So I'm just going to open a browser, and we're going to go. First thing we need to do is go get that ISO, and I'm going to go to linuxmint.com. And we're just going to go to actually download. And we're going to choose a 64-bit edition. You'll want to choose what's appropriate for the hardware that you have. The machine that I typically will use will be a 64-bit capable machine. If yours is older and you're unsure, there are lots of videos to show you how to determine what your machine is capable of. So what they do is they show you mirrors, and these are locations where you can download it. Choose one close to you geographically. You'll find typically that's going to be faster. I happen to know that the West Virginia University mirror, for me, works quite well. They have a lot of bandwidth, and they're close enough, and it moves quite well. So I'm just going to save the file. And so these things typically run 1 to 2 gigs, depending on the distribution. Now, if you're working with older hardware, you'll use something a little lighter and smaller, and it'll take a little research to find out what will run well on your machine. You can check the system requirements for whatever distribution you're interested in. The Cinnamon window manager does have some graphic effects and so forth, so it's not going to run the best on really old hardware. You may want to look at a different distribution that's designed for that, and Google will help you find distributions that are optimized for running on older hardware if you want to do a little research and find out what may run well on what you have. But a live environment, again, won't modify your machine if you want to try it even on the machine that you use on a regular basis. So if you have a newer, faster machine and you don't want to commit to actually a full install on a piece of hardware, this live environment is a great way to do it. So the ISOs come in. Let's just make sure. I think that's set to go into my downloads folder. Yep, great. Okay, so the other thing we're going to need is a way to write it to a USB. And one really fantastic piece of software is called Etcher. Let's go look for Etcher real quick. And I don't know their website address, but we can find it. Balena. That's it. Okay, so let's go there and let's just get a copy of Etcher. They auto-detect your operating system based on your browser settings, and they figured out that I'm using a Linux machine, so right away it offers to let me download for the machine that I have. Let's save that also. Okay, that's all done. So let's extract that. Okay, so let's get rid of a little screen clutter here. Okay, so this is Etcher. It's really very simple. So the ISO that we downloaded is an image. So we're going to select that here in Etcher. And we're going to go find that in our downloads folder. Okay, so then I have pre-inserted a USB stick here, and I've aptly titled it when I formatted it USB stick. So it finds that, but if you need to go look for that, you want to go and search for your drive, and please make sure that you choose the right drive. In my case, it's labeled USB stick. It's an 8 GB flash drive. So now that we've chosen the image, the USB stick we want to write it to, we just tell it to flash. Linux will have us authorize, and your operating system may or may not do that. We're going to do that, and we get a little progress window here. Now my USB stick is just 2.0. The machine that I'm running this on is also its ports are just USB 2. So going to take a few minutes to do this. Once it flashes, though, this will be a bootable USB drive that you can use to sample a live environment. We're also going to try to make a video for a virtual machine because one of the first ways I discovered the ability to test out various Linux distributions to sample which ones that I really prefer and so forth was the same fellow that introduced me to the live environment also introduced me to virtual machines. Again, something that I had never worked with. In my world, it was completely foreign to see a window running a completely separate computer inside of your operating system. But he was doing it every day. He was an IT administrator and far ahead of my computing skills, and really just introduced me to a lot of really cool stuff. Virtual machines are an environment that's based strictly on files that exist inside your operating system, and you need a piece of software. There are several of them out there that will let you do that. The one that I started with, because I was working in Windows, was VMware. They had a free player that you could use to create virtual machines and run in Windows. But as I transitioned, I actually moved over to using Apple as my primary operating system. And at this point, I use OS X routinely, and any Windows that I need to do, they're virtual machines in the Mac OS X. For what I still have to do in Windows, some proprietary programming of equipment that I use in my home automation business, that those programs are only available for Windows. So I just maintain a virtual instance of Windows, and I launch that whenever I need to do that. But daily use of pretty much anything else is done in Mac OS X. So virtual machines are also another really cool way to sample Linux distributions, and like I say, look forward to that in another video. Let's see, we've got 2 minutes to go here. Unfortunately, until I get that screen recording software, I can't show you the implementation actually using the live environment here, but I will make that video as soon as that recorder arrives and I get a chance to test it out. Hopefully it will catch the post of the machine and the whole process. I'm not sure, I've never used one of those. I'm not sure how picky it is about resolution coming in and switching, because during boot up and live environment startup, the machine will switch resolutions a couple times, and I just don't know how it's going to capture that, but we'll see. It'll be fun. That's really it. When this is done, I'll show you the files that it put on the drive. It's a pretty cool way to check out Linux. I found that Etcher is such a clean and simple interface. There's really just not too many options that you have to tinker around with. 3 buttons. Select it, direct it, and execute it. And that's really, as simple as it gets. Etcher is also available for all 3 platforms, as we saw there when downloading it. So whatever operating system you have, it's going to look just the same as what you see here. We're going to do a validation. This machine that I'm using as the host is a Mac Mini from late 2012. Not a bad little machine, but it had a rotational hard drive in it, and I have enough Macs that I use. I have a laptop that I take out in the field and a desktop, an iMac. They're both on solid state drives, and they're newer machines, and when you go to use a machine that's even really just a few years back, and with a rotational hard drive, you really do start to notice a difference. So just to spruce up the machine that I use here at the desktop, or at the workbench, I put a solid state drive in the machine, and installed this Linux Mint and themed it a little bit here just for kicks. The resolution is high, which will make it easier for making YouTube videos, easier to read on screen. I'm sorry, the resolution is low, not high. Plus the monitor that I'm running it on is actually a TV, and it doesn't really render 1080p very well. It's an inexpensive TV. But this resolution here actually looks great on the monitor, and hopefully it's recording well. This is the first time I've done a screen recording with it. We'll see how it comes out. By the way, I have noticed, because I'm just really getting into creating some YouTube videos, it is a lot of work. Really, kudos to everyone out there that's making all of these really awesome videos. It's not really that technically complicated, but it's a ton of work. You know, figuring out how to get it done and then getting it done, I found it's really pretty tedious. Some of these guys that turn out videos so frequently, I'm not sure how they do it. It takes so much time for me, and I'm sure I'll get better with experience, to record the video, get the right configuration to do that, and then to edit the video, and then, you know, push it on up there to YouTube. I find it quite challenging. So we're all done here. Let's look at that USB stick, and there we go. It's been titled Linux Mint. Let's connect to it. So there's all of the goodies that are necessary to make this a live environment, and from the live environment is how you would begin the installation of your Linux distro. Virtually all of them nowadays have a live environment, and the ISO that you download will run as a live environment using the same method that I've done here. I'm sure there are some that will not, although none really come to mind. If you, like I say, if you're coming out of the Windows world and you're kind of curious about Linux Mint Cinnamon Flavor is, or Cinnamon Window Manager, is really a pretty good way to make the transition. There's a start menu that located in the same, you know, lower left corner by default, and you can move things around with Linux Mint. With most Linux distros, they're so customizable. You really can. Really just built in the core operating system and Window Manager, you can restructure the operating system to your liking, which is something you don't get with Windows. You can change colors a little bit, and you know, there are some other theming options, but nowhere near as extensive as the ability with most Linux distros and Window Managers to make the system your own. Get the look and feel that you like. And honestly, I get bored pretty quickly. I move around quite a bit. This is a darker theme, which I traditionally haven't really embraced, but I'm trying to, you know, give it a look and see, you know, how it works for me. The one thing I noticed with the darker themes is you know, for example, web browsing, there's still going to be a white background, so it kind of looks, you know, a little kludgy to me. You've got, you know, documents and web pages and so forth that you look at that don't really theme out the same as the rest of the operating system. So that looks a little odd to me, but you know, I guess it's all just personal preferences, and I'm sure I'll get tired of it and go back to another theme. And really, with Mint Cinnamon, just the ones that come with it right out of the box, they're pretty good. There's enough options, I find, that I can usually tune it in to a nice clean look and feel for me. And then, of course, there are just endless possibilities of, you know, themes and control modifications, you know, control elements modifications that you can go and download. And that's part of the fun of Linux, is just, you know, tinkering around with the way it looks and feels, and getting it to be something fresh. You know, I use computers every day, all day, for what I do for a living. And, you know, getting a fresh environment is enjoyable to me. Well, so guys, that's it. That's how you make a live USB environment for Linux. And hopefully you find this helpful and catch the bug and start looking around at it. Thanks as always, and we'll talk to you again.